Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm JR. That's Chris. We are talking through the Penn State head coaching situation. Chris, man, you said it last week. Like this, this is one of the craziest searches.
It
And
is.
who would have thought a week later it would get even crazier? I did a show kind of talking about, well, I did a segment on one of the live shows with Zach, kind of talking about Bob Chesney and kind of that whole situation. If there could be a coach flip and stuff like that. We'll get to Chesney and kind of get Chris's thoughts on that a little bit later on. But Chris, let's start with just the search in general, Pat Kraft, where things are at. Obviously, Penn State fans not very happy with Pat Kraft, not really happy with the way things have been going. All these other head coaches have been hired, and Penn State doesn't have a recruiting
Yep.
class, doesn't have a head coach, doesn't have a GM. From the outside looking in, it just looks like a big old mess right now, and there's one guy to point at,
Yep.
and that's Pat Kraft.
Well, no, that's true. So here, just give you the breakdown of what unfolded on over the weekend and then the past few days. So I think last show I mentioned the mystery candidate. I was skeptical a couple weeks back when I heard a mystery candidate. But then I heard it was actually a day or so after we did our show that the mystery candidate was Kalani Sitake. I think that's out there now. Everybody knows. And I couldn't share it at the time. I mean, I didn't know the day we're recording, but I couldn't share it at the time. So they've been Kalani's talking, Pat Kraft were talking for a long time now, and Kalani's agent was talking. And Kalani's agent's not Jimmy Sexton, which was a good thing. Um, they're talking for a long time now behind the scenes. Everything was agreed upon. Kalani Sitake was agreed handshake deal to become Penn State's next head coach. From what I've gathered, he was actually in State College, I believe Sunday. I think he was in State College on Sunday, and he left State College with the agreement under the impression, or I know there at least there's communications. I mean, from what I heard, he was in State College, and there was communication that or an agreement he was going to be the next head coach. He left State College under the impression he was the next head coach of Penn State. Pat Kraft left when he left, thought this is a done deal. And this is why this was so hush hush and tight lipped, because they knew once BYU found out that they're going to do everything they could to keep him there, because he's like the Joe Paterno of BYU. Well, I guess Lavelle Edwards is, but this guy's the next type big name guy, right? And they love this guy out there. And it's a tight knit group community, the Mormons and all that. So he went back to BYU, and it was Monday that I guess they got wind of it. And once they got wind of it, this is interesting. So I have to give a huge shout out to Alex Markham. Hope he doesn't mind me dropping his name, but if you ever want to know anything about Utah football, follow Alex Markham. He's a Rivals guy. He covers the Utah Utes, but he knows everything about connections with BYU. He's even close with Kalani. Not close, but they're kind of friends. And I reached out to him, and he basically kind of gave me the lowdown of that Kalani. So they called an emergency meeting or something like that at BYU. Kalani and the athletic director met, and I guess the athletic director bungled this a couple times. Kalani didn't want to have didn't want BYU to match Penn State's offer. Penn State was giving them north of $11 million or something like that, and I'm sure they upped it even more trying to keep him at the last minute. He was only making $3 million at BYU, and he didn't want him to match their offer. He just wanted to be paid like fair market value for what he thought he was worth, because he is one of the bigger name head coaches. Like him or not, the guy's a good coach. He was very close to going to Oregon. Oregon wanted him. The athletic director, it's crazy. The story's crazy. The athletic director, I guess, basically didn't agree to it and originally said no. So then the big boosters out in BYU got involved. And once the big boosters got involved, I mean, this was a whole thing with this. There's something in the Mormon religion called the Church of Latter-day Saints. They're called the Quorum 12. You could look them up, the Quorum 12. And I guess it's this group that's like the governing body. And I'm sure I'm not going to say all this perfectly correct, but it's this like governing body of like the Latter-day Saints church. Okay. Somehow they got involved, in this high up Mormon priest who's like the big shot out there got involved, talked to Kalani. other big boosters got involved. You probably heard of the Cookie Crumbl guy that got involved. He was just what? Did you hear about the Cookie Crumbl guy? Yeah, but he
Yeah,
was just one of them.
me and
Like
Zach
everybody's
referenced it on the live. So yeah.
everybody's like giving this Cookie Crumbl guy credit, but he was just one, from what I was told, just one guy of several big boosters out there. So long story short, Kalani's very, I guess he's influenced very easily, especially like, that's where he grew up, played whole 9 yards. It was like trying to lure Joe Paterno from Penn State, and he basically got what he wanted. I think he got like $9 million. I mean, he tripled his salary. They gave him more NIL money, more resources overall, took care of his assistant coaches. I'm telling you, this guy spoke with, he was on top of everything. I do my best to give you guys the best info I can. And this guy was on top of everything. And he told me this Friday. I spoke to him Friday. On Friday, I said, so is this like, because there's a lot of people on the message boards and insiders that still thought that this was Penn State's guy. He was going to stay. And then once word got out, they're saying, well, Penn State still feels confident 50-50. I said, it's not 50-50. I said, it's done. I'm telling you, this guy is very confident. And I said, Alex, I said, so is this like 90% sure he's staying? What if Penn State? He goes, 99.9% he's staying at BYU. That was it. And he stayed. So that's how that went down. And, I mean, I don't know why Pat Kraft couldn't get him to see. That's the whole thing. The guy wouldn't sign, and Pat Kraft couldn't. They kept getting him to sign, and he kept putting it off because he's going to be the Big 12 championship game. I don't know if he was waiting for that. They couldn't get him to sign, and now we're left. It's a big major reset. It doesn't look good. It's not good, and this is where we are at. You want to get into the other coaches now, as far as who they're looking at? Is that where we're going?
Well, let's talk through
what I
obviously the Crumbl Cookie stuff. And you saw the Crumbl Cookie boxes at the James Franklin thing at Virginia Tech. I don't think we can move on without talking through some of this James Franklin stuff, because James
Franklin that's fine. I didn't know if you want to do that now or okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that now. Go ahead.
So Landon Tangwall said the Crumbl Cookie guy sent Pat Kraft a box of cookies. It's unbelievable, man. So listen, I've been exposing James Franklin for the fraud. I'm not a hater. I'm just a guy that calls it like it is. I told you about him tampering, stealing recruits. We posted the tweets of the one recruit's father saying how he basically tampered and told recruits to decommit while they were still employed at Penn State. They did this. Now, Jimmy Sexton, who people don't know, he's this power agent. He's all these big coaches' agent. I mean, almost every big coach out there, he's the agent for. And he was very, very pissed off. He loves Franklin. He was very pissed off that Kraft fired Franklin, and he just played Kraft like a fiddle. Do you know Jimmy Sexton playing Kraft and all the people that Kraft were looking at interviewing that Jimmy Sexton just used his clients as leverage against Kraft? He got him over like $400 million in raises. Pat Kraft got all these other coaches, because he was just used as leverage, $400 million total, like over $400 million. It's crazy. But so James Franklin called, and this is verified, called Kalani Sitake and just completely trashed Pat Kraft. He trashed Penn State. He completely trashed Pat Kraft. He's not a good guy to work with, whatever. But the guy just keeps hammering Penn State. He's just like a butthurt little kid. I mean, he couldn't wait to get to Virginia Tech, have his staff get to Virginia Tech. And James Franklin's the opposite of success with honor. The guy's always been a fraud, and he's always been a low character guy. And so are his recruiting guys. Let me tell you, and I've met them. They're frauds. And he couldn't wait to get to Virginia Tech to do it the right way. And now the guy, he's calling coaches. He's literally calling coaches, getting in contact with coaches that we're looking at to trash Penn State to try to hurt them even more. And I don't care what anybody says. This is a true story. And this comes from quite a few very reliable sources. And you know something about Brian with the Brian Hartline. Isn't that why Brian Hartline soured on Penn State?
Yeah, so I don't think that was the only reason, but from what I was told, so if people don't know, I know somebody who works for Ohio State NIL a little bit, and we talk, from time to time, and they were letting me know that Brian Hartline was very interested in the Penn State job, and if it was offered to him, he was 100% going to take it. Well, when Penn State started looking at some other options over Brian Hartline, he didn't love that. Brian Hartline, very confident guy, believes in himself more than anything else. I mean, if you're an NFL player and you're the best wide
Sure.
receiver coach in the nation, I'd say you can probably believe in yourself pretty well. And he's obviously done a great job this year as offensive coordinator for Ohio State. So there was the fact that there were other coaches ahead of him, it seemed like, in the pecking order, and then James Franklin did not speak directly to Brian Hartline. From what I was told, they never spoke to each other, but somebody from James Franklin's camp, I am assuming that's one of his recruiting guys that you're talking about, Chris, got in contact with
Probably.
Brian Hartline and just basically said, basically just continued to kind of pull on that whole idea of like, you're second fiddle. Pat Kraft sucks. He doesn't want to he doesn't want to actually give anything to the coaches there. He's bad to work with. Penn State's terrible. They're not going to give you NIL if you don't do this, that, and the other. Like, basically trashing the whole program and everything, like you said. And I wouldn't say that was the deciding factor for Brian Hartline, but I definitely don't think it helped with Brian Hartline to continue to be involved. That's why we kind of
Yeah,
said,
I mean
not that
that's
wasn't why, but that was a contributing factor to why we were kind of on here like, yeah, Hartline to Penn State, probably not going to happen.
Yep. No, it's very aggravating. It really fires me up, man, because there's so many people out there that still think that Franklin's this good guy. Why are you hating on him? He's not a good person. He's not a high moral guy. He never has been. It's just all a show in front of the cameras. I mean, even when Juwan Sider was our running back coach for a long time, and then he went to Notre Dame, and Franklin was even taking jabs at him in the press conference, taking shots at him, and it's just I mean, getting in arguments with fans constantly near the end of his, the last couple of years. I mean, just the guys, he belongs at a program like a Virginia. He belongs at some lower level program because he's not going to pay guys NIL. He doesn't want to ever lead with money. So that's a good place for him. I don't think he'll ever sniff a big time job again, to be honest with you. You'd be crazy to hire this guy. And I know other fans from the outside looking in are at, well, the guy did a good job. But there's so much more to it. He was 2-19 versus the top 10. He was like 7-21 versus the top 25. He didn't want to play the NIL game. He didn't want to pay recruits top tar. I mean, there's there's so much more to this than just like he did a decent job.
Yeah,
There's more to it than that. But anyways,
I was gonna say
nothing
I
surprising.
I made a video outlining all this stuff. So if you ever have questions about James Franklin and what kind of went on there, I didn't go super deep in depth, but I did kind of go through and be like, look, the
Yeah,
firing of James Franklin was justified. You can't look back on it and say, oh, they should have just kept James Franklin. So anyway, I don't want to make this the entire podcast. I do want to move
no,
on because there are some names out there. So obviously we filled you in on Kalani Sitake. We let you know kind of some of the issues around it. And we are not trying to absolve Pat Kraft of responsibility for this. Pat Kraft has not done things exactly the way that he probably should have, or done things the right, I shouldn't say the right way, it makes it sound like he compromised morals or something like that, but he's not done everything super well in all of this.
no,
So James Franklin does not absolve him, but it is an important talking point for it. So some of the other names that are out there right now, Chris, is Jeff Brom. He had the announcement that he's not going anywhere. Bob Chesney obviously is going to UCLA. That looks like that's going to stick. Zach and I talked about that. Terry Smith has been a consistent name. Matt Campbell is a name that's kind of coming back into the fold. You know of another interview out there you told me before. And then the big target guy that looks like he's number one on the board at this point because he really wants the job. It's just the question if Pat Kraft wants to give him the job is one Brian Daboll. So let's start with Jeff Brom, Bob Chesney. Do you see both of those two as completely out of it?
yes, I do. So the thing with Chesney was he was supposed to be the once this got to the end, he was supposed to be the plan B guy because Chesney came into the picture late in the search. He interviewed well, and he was supposed to be the fallback guy. Pat Kraft slow played him. He just kept them dangling around, slow played them. And then I'm sure Chesney didn't appreciate that, but he slow played him. And then once Kraft thought it's pretty much a done deal that he's getting Sitake, that was it. Chesney moved on to UCLA. That was it. Jeff Brom, I don't, they were never extremely high on him, Penn State, but then when they had to circle back, he made it clear he's staying at Louisville, like you said. So those two are out of it. I did hear, oh, it's crazy. So I did hear Brian Daboll is the guy. I did hear this from a few people that's who, but this is tricky because it's just, I think he's getting pushback on this. I did hear Brian Daboll is the guy they're looking to hire, but not everybody's happy with that. And when Brian Daboll initially showed interest, when they had all these other candidates they're looking at, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good interview. I know they're based. What I was told is there just wasn't a good connection. He didn't connect well. I don't know what happened, but it just wasn't a good connection. But now that it just seems like they're down in crunch time, that's where they're circling back to. I don't think it's a done deal or a definite, because I did just see that they're supposed to be bringing Tommy Rees in for an interview. Bringing Tommy Rees in for an interview, they have some interest in Jeff Halfley, and they are also talking to Matt Campbell now. Tommy Rees, brand new, first time I heard his name involved in this search. I don't know what his interest level is, but if he's coming in for an interview, obviously there's some interest. Jeff Halfley, I don't think he'll get the job. The reason Jeff Halfley's name came up is because when Pat Kraft was at Boston College, he was the AD at Boston College for a little bit when Jeff Halfley was there, and I think he promoted Jeff Halfley to to promote him to his head coach. I think he was went from like a defense coordinator to head coach or something like that at Boston College. So, Kraft just seems like he feels comfortable with guys he already worked with. And there's so much that is fit at Penn State. Like just talking to a buddy of mine, it's not just an X's and O's guy that could lock themselves in a room for 3-4 days and just come up with the best game plan. Like they really want, a guy to do all the PR stuff, be in the community. It's really getting ridiculous to me anymore. I mean, I get it. A coach has to wear a million different hats and has all these responsibilities, but just give me a coach that could win. At the end of the day, obviously you can't hire some asshole. You got to hire a guy that's, a decent person and all, but winning should be at the end of the day is the most important thing.
Yeah, no,
And
I
obviously
totally
going
agree.
to school and getting your grade, doing what you're supposed to do and academic wise. So, that's where it stands. I don't listen. You could hear Brian Daboll's name announced this weekend. You could hear it in a couple of days. My opinion is I do think they're in a reset mode right now, and I do think they're looking at other options. Brian Daboll's there. He'll take the job. But like I said, Tommy Rees is coming in for an interview. The only thing I heard was they're talking to Matt Campbell right now. No interview set up at the moment or anything like that. They're just talking to Matt Campbell. Tommy Rees is coming in. I don't think Jeff Halfley's interested in the job, from what I've gathered. And that's where it stands right now. Not really sure of any other names at the moment. So we'll see. Did I admit the Terry Smith stuff? I didn't get into that, did I? Because we were
No,
just
you did
talking
not.
backstage about it. So here's the thing with Terry Smith. Terry Smith, when he coached in the Nebraska game, he wore that Joe Paterno 409 pin. And from wearing that, and it was funny. The one podcast I do with Mark Lesko, the one guy he has on at that Nebraska game, everybody had signs that said hire Terry Smith, and his one buddy that comes on his podcast was the one who made those signs that passed them out. But from that Nebraska game, and with that wearing that pin and all that, and honoring Joe, that created this huge groundswell of support that kind of caught Pat Kraft off guard. And I guess Pat Kraft didn't like being caught off guard like that, didn't appreciate just like having everything thrown in his face like that. And I guess some of the things Terry Smith said, afterwards in the press conference or whatever. And, I would be fine with hiring Terry Smith. I don't know. It just seems like Pat Kraft is looking, like I said, for this big name hire, but supposedly that rubbed Pat Kraft the wrong way. Now, here's an issue. Like, this is a slippery slope, and I really hope other people start stepping in because a lot of big boosters, we're in the best spot we've been in NIL in a long time. And a lot of big boosters are really, really pushing for Terry Smith. And some of them want Pat Kraft gone. Like, there's big boosters who want him gone, and there's a lot of support for Terry Smith. If he doesn't hire Terry Smith and he goes and hires someone like Brian Daboll, you could lose a lot of these big boosters. You could lose a lot of support, and that's more NIL money. That's important. And the biggest thing with hiring Terry Smith is he was the best recruiter on the staff under Franklin, and roster retention. Like, there's a lot of good players on Penn State still. Like, Ethan Grunkermeyer's coming along. Chaz Coleman's this really good looking defensive end first year guy. Like, they got talent there. You hire Terry Smith, you're keeping just about all those core pieces. I mean, the players come out and said it. And the players have huge support for Terry Smith. King Mack, their safety, tweeted out, they're making this harder than it has to be. Like, Norwood's just hired a guy. So you don't hire him, and a lot of these guys can hit the portal, and that's not good. That's not good. You know, everybody says, "Oh, we're gonna hit the portal hard ourselves. We're gonna spend a ton of money," and that's true. But you still want to keep your key pieces. So Pat Kraft's really playing on a slippery slope. Like, this job, this hire could really determine the future of his job because sorry about that. I got to turn this off. So that's where it's at. You know, I do think it's going to drag out probably into the weekend. They're going to, like I said, they're going to bring Tommy Rees in for an interview, and they're looking at some other guys. But right now, they're the names I got. Daboll's in the lead. I don't think it's a done deal. Tommy Rees coming in for an interview, talking to Matt Campbell. Jeff Halfley's there as well. And that's where we're at. And Terry's always going to be there as well.
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
I really hope they don't go the Jeff Halfley route. After seeing him at Boston College and him basically, just being over with college football, I don't think him coming back to college football and going to Penn State would be the best option there. So we will see where it goes. That's kind of the info for you on where we were at. I was really hoping for an episode of hey, we expect something tomorrow, expect something, Friday morning or something like that. But, this is where the search is at. We'll see where things go. Hopefully, James Franklin will leave it alone, but we'll see what goes on moving forward. And at the end of the day, even if Pat Kraft makes a good hire here, I'm not totally confident that Pat Kraft is still going to be the athletic director come next season there at Penn State.
Supposedly he has a really big buyout himself, though, so who knows?
Okay. Yeah, so we'll see. All right, anything else, Chris, before we get out of here?
No, that's it. I just want this thing over with, man. I mean, we got to start getting our team together, and we just got to start going forward. And the thing is, like, everybody is stressed out about this Penn State fans, and they want to coach already. But I'm saying I want this over with. But honestly, there's no need to rush it. Like, the 26 recruiting class is done. Your current roster players can't go anywhere until the portal opens. The portal doesn't open until January 2nd. So if they got to take another week, or however long, I'm not saying too long, but if they got to take another week to make sure they get the right guy, of who's ever left, then do it. I'd be fine with just going out and getting Terry Smith. You could sign Terry Smith to a small contract. You don't have to give him a ton of money. First year coach, you give him a short contract, a few years. If he works out, great. You keep everybody happy. If he doesn't work out, you move on. But at least, I just give the guy a shot already. Well,
I tend to agree. I think Terry Smith's probably the best option here. Matt Campbell is probably right there behind him, and I just hope they don't hire Tommy Rees. That sounds terrible. So
yeah,
all right.
I don't.
we'll see what goes on. If you have any thoughts or anything like that, please do leave them in the comment section. We would love to hear what you guys think. Sorry for the internet on this one. I'll try to splice it together and stuff like that as best I can. But Chris, appreciate you coming on here once again, giving us the lowdown, the scoop on everything going on with the Penn State head coaching stuff and everything. If you want to hear more from Chris, going over to the Mark Lesko podcast as he does go on there. And you can come back here on Thursday morning once again as we do another Penn State head coach update with Chris. And who knows? Maybe we'll have a hire by then. Maybe we'll know who the hire is.
Yeah,
we'll see.
it's 50-50 if we have a new coach next week, next Thursday night or Thursday morning. My God.
We will see. We will see. So thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Have a good night.